You can
All right, so this is a
refuse
video released by
orders.
6 Democratic congresspeople.
Illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army,
Our Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your
All right, so what's going on here is that there are these 6 Democratic lawmakers that are telling individual military service people to refuse orders that they deem to be illegal. So then Trump says this is seditious behavior. Then Elizabeth Warren chimes in and says that's Trump calling for violence against members of Congress. So what's going on here? I honestly think this is kind of important, which is why I'm making this post, because the military is saying that this is inviting a lot of confusion. That's because service members have to follow lawful orders. Even though if they do follow unlawful orders, they can get exposed to risk, they can also be punished if they don't follow a lawful order. So that's why you have JAGs in the military that provide clarity to soldiers that have questions on this topic. Because asking individual service members to make on-the-spot legal judgments without evidence or guidance can put them at enormous personal risk. And I would just add that the questions that these Democratic lawmakers are talking about, these aren't the kind of things that we have policies in place for so that service members can refuse illegal orders. And I'll tell you about that. So actually, in the military, orders are presumed to be lawful by default. We have this code called the Universal Code of Military Justice, and it requires unlawfulness. So if a soldier determines an order to be unlawful, to be obvious to any ordinary person. So actually, an unlawful order, it was put into our policies to protect soldiers from having to do things like these awful things that happened historically, usually in war. That's because the whole reason we have the idea of being able to disobey unlawful orders is that soldiers can't get charged with a war crime. And actually, this is super irresponsible by these Democratic congresspeople. Because in our country, it's really important that our military is led by a civilian, by somebody who is elected by the people. It's a non-negotiable cornerstone of our constitutional republic. And when you tell regular service people that they should determine the constitutionality and things like this of very subtle, debatable constitutional principles that are currently being debated by the smartest lawyers in the country at the Supreme Court level, that is definitely not the reason that we have this idea of any ordinary person being able to determine the unlawfulness of a military order. And I mean, that's because it should be obvious to them that the functioning of the armed forces depends on order and discipline, chain of command, so that when you have, for example, high stakes situations, people don't have to evaluate the debatable constitutionality of something. They go and assume the order was lawful and take care of business. And honestly, Trump is right to call it sedition. I mean, sedition in our code is defined as people who try to hinder or delay the execution of laws in the United States. And if you tell service members that they have to evaluate the legality of every order they're given, that definitely delays the execution of an order that you're supposed to presume to be lawful, unless it seems like it's going to be a war crime. And to me, the constitutionality of this is so clear. In Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And in Article 6, it says that the federal law shall be the supreme law of the land. And in the section about the executive branch, there's a specific clause that says that he shall take care that the laws are faithfully executed. So Donald Trump has the constitutional duty to execute the law of the land throughout the United States. So, for example, if Democrats don't like that he is choosing to enforce immigration laws and question the constitutionality of sanctuary cities, which I do think is questionable, they just have to look that this is the land right here, this whole area. And Donald Trump was elected with a large victory in the Electoral College. He even won the popular vote. So I know these people might not like the fact that he clearly won the election. Maybe, honestly, they should have put up a better candidate. But the president has the duty and the authority to execute the laws passed by Congress throughout the United States. And it's unreasonable for these Congress people to expect our service members to evaluate difficult constitutional questions. That is not the standard of the unlawfulness being clear and obvious to any ordinary person. They're honestly purposely misrepresenting the purpose of giving service members the rights to evaluate the lawfulness of an order because that was concerned with this type of stuff. I mean, war crimes. Not the fact that your team lost the election and now you think that the best way to undermine the results of that election is to ask the military to start to fracture with the executive branch, which is clearly close to sedition, and I would argue anti-American and anti-democracy.